You're listening to Crow's Cast, a podcast by USF St. Petersburg's student newspaper, The Crow's Nest. This week we'll be discussing politics. Hello everyone, welcome back to Crow's Cast. After what I would call a long hiatus, we are back in business, and here we are today with a political episode. We are going to be talking with Richie Floyd. Richie is a teacher, a political organizer, and now a city council candidate for St. Petersburg's 8th District. It's good to have you here, Richie.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. Why did you get involved in politics in the first place?
Yeah, so I think like many people, the events surrounding 2016 were like the biggest catalyst for me. I had been slightly politically active before that, but in 2016, Donald Trump winning the presidency sort of woke up a lot of people my age. I got involved at first politically, but then my biggest involvement was through efforts in my labor unions and union solidarity efforts. And so that's sort of where I started from, and sort of what guides my politics now.
Okay, that makes sense. So you kind of said like your involvement in labor unions kind of guided you in that. So how did that translate to your activism in like political organizing and really getting involved in the community?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess basically what I mean when I say like I started with labor unions is I'm a union member, my wife's a union member, and pretty much everyone in my family is. My dad, brothers and sisters, we're all in different unions. And so like we have like strong like values, like working people should get what they deserve, wages should raise. Really, I think that seeing back like what's happened to the sort of the working class and the middle class of the country over the last few years seems to be like sort of the core of what the problem is. A lot of the problems are in the country. And so things just haven't gotten better for working people in so long that it's polarized us. It's made us susceptible to all sorts of things. And that vision is sort of what got me going. And so I got involved with local organizations for economic and racial justice, particularly the Democratic Socialists of America in Pinellas County and Dream Defenders. And that was sort of where I started. And those are the groups that really attract a lot of people my age, students, young adults, and you find your peers there and people who are really like, shared vision of the world and what it could be. And to be quite honest, I kind of glossed over it, but it was really Bernie Sanders' presidential campaign that really sort of lit the spark for me. I still remember the day I was sitting on my couch, and it was my cousin's partner at the time came in, and he showed me the video where Bernie announced his candidacy from like the Lakeshore in Vermont, and it said like college for all, free healthcare, and I immediately was like, that's what my politics are. Like we need better things for working people. And so that was sort of like what really shook me and said, all right, it's time to get started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so and I think that's definitely the case for a lot of young people in politics. I think a lot of people were inspired by Bernie's campaign. So and Bernie's campaign, a lot of his campaign was based on the grassroots energy and a lot of like local political organizing. So when you're looking at politics and your ideals on a mass scale, what is your theory of change? So like when you look at these ideals like free healthcare for all, free college, a living wage, all these things, do you believe that this comes from kind of just putting a lot of focus on a national politics, or do you think that local organizing in the community from city to city is more effective?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the answer is simple. We get out of our politics what we demand. And so really when it comes to like how I think the world works and how it changes is through an organized movement of people fighting for what they want. And so, be it a local or a national issue, that's what you need. And that's what we've tried to do in all of my political organizing, and what we've tried to do in the campaign is to activate as many citizens as possible, as many working people as possible, as many everyday regular people as possible, to get out and make demands of their elected representatives. And it's not just, if we want to win Medicare for all, that we can elect the best candidates. We have to hold their feet to the fire. We have to have a mass organizations of people. And so I really support mass movements as much as possible. They're blunt instruments, but they're what's caused change throughout our entire history. And so that's where my politics are. And I think a lot of the politics, the young people who have gotten involved lately, are in really building a movement that can demand things from people. And we've already seen it. We've already seen it start to work, at least rhetorically, from the top down to the bottom, is that the world's changing, and people are being much more pleasant towards the sort of progressive ideals that we espouse, because we've amassed a much larger movement than we had in the last 20, 30 years.
Yeah. So when you were involved in political organizing, and you were going from door to door and canvassing and building connections, like what about that made you decide, and that process in general made you decide to it was time for you to run for public office?
Yeah, it's really about, what's best, what I can best do to further serve my community, but really push further for building the movements that we're trying to build. And so electoral politics is not the only way to do this. Like I said, I am passionate about labor issues, and was doing a lot of organizing, like in solidarity efforts with other unions, as well as things within my own union. But what it really seems like is that you have to meet people where they are. You have to communicate with people in a way that they understand. And electoral politics is a way that people understand, and it's where people are. And it is one facet of getting the world changed. And so, as time went on and I had an opportunity, a lot of people, we talked about it with the groups that we organize in, and we decided, to run a candidate for office, for myself to run for office would be beneficial, because we could make positive change together. And I'd like to, mention before I go on from this, it's not just about myself getting elected. I am in a district where a new council member was going to be elected, and I have done a lot of work, and I really am passionate about helping the city and the neighborhoods that I live in. And so that was a big factor of it. But it's really also about, building the movement that it takes to actually demand change. So it's not just about me. It's about, it's about everything that we're building together.
So if you are elected, let's say, everything goes well and you win, what will you prioritize as a member of the city council?
Yeah, I have three things that I talk about a lot on the campaign trail, although there are a litany of issues that are important to the city. But the three things that I talk about and will aim to push right away are better housing and development for the city in particular. The city has an affordable housing crisis, I would say. Wages have been stagnant for a long time. Housing prices have gone up. Personally, I work as a teacher, so does my wife, and we would not be able to afford to move into our house if we were trying to now. And it's just been a few years since we moved in, because prices have risen so much since then. And if teachers and firefighters and everyday working people that make the city run can't afford to live in its neighborhoods, we have a real problem. And so that's one thing I'll be looking towards, and that is intimately linked with the development in the city. We want to do things that make it to where every development that comes into the city benefits the residents that already live here. It's great, you know, that we have affluent people from other places that want to move to St. Pete. That's wonderful, and that should continue. But we should make sure that when we're doing things, developing things around the city, we should make sure that they're creating living wage jobs for existing residents, that they're creating affordable housing for people that need it. And so that's one of the biggest things I'm going to focus on. The city has directed some resources to that. I plan on expanding that and really trying to give it a shot in the arm as best as I can. So that's probably the top thing. The other couple of things that I think go hand in hand with that I'll be focusing on are bettering working conditions and attempting to raise wages in the city. That goes hand in hand with housing pretty easily. The more stable your working conditions, the higher your wages are, the more effectively you're going to be able to manage living in the city, which means housing, food, all sorts of other things that are important to people. And so I really want to like use the city's resources and contracting to try to make better paying jobs. Things like apprenticeship ordinances that the city have already passed are an excellent place to start. Trying to use union labor as much as we can. Unions are a great way to raise wages, to but also to encourage racial justice because they're more diverse hiring processes than non-union workplaces. And so I'm really passionate about that. I also want to just try to better working conditions. We have ideas around things that really wouldn't cost businesses any money, but could stabilize working people's lives, like fair scheduling practices, wage theft ordinances that the city has already passed, further enforcing them. Those things really could go a long way to helping people afford housing, going a long way to helping people afford life in the city, and really could help all of the residents of the city by creating a city that's like not just a great place to live for those who can afford it, but a great place for everyone to live and a great place for everyone to work as well. And uh, I could go on forever about that. I'm really passionate about it, but I'll say the last thing that I talk about a lot on the campaign trail is climate change and resiliency for the city. I'm a relatively young person. I'm still in my 20s, just barely, and I own a home in the city, and I plan on being here for the long term. And that's a scary prospect when you look at the state of climate change. The winter we've just had has been unseasonably warm here, while unseasonably everywhere else in the United States. Storms are getting more powerful every year, and we are on a peninsula. It could be just a short period of time before we're in a lot of trouble. Really, just one serious storm could really do damage to the city, and it's really just disconcerting. And I hope to make sure that the city is meeting its climate goals that it's already set for itself, but we really need to be exceeding them, and we really need to be spending a lot of money on our infrastructure and our resiliency as well. And so I'll definitely prioritize that.
So you've been on the campaign for quite a while now. So how is your campaign going in terms of donations, volunteers, potential opponents, and so on?
Yeah, so the campaign so far has gone very well. We've had a very good reception from the community. We have knocked on a majority of the doors in the district of registered voters. We've collected petitions to get on the ballot. We have already collected more than enough petitions to get on the ballot. We'll be turning those in soon. We have talked to a lot of people, and it's been really well. When we talk to the people at their doors in a socially distanced fashion, of course, we are learning a lot about what people care about in the city. And I really think people are passionate about the issues that I've been describing, and not just those issues, but other issues we talk about as well that I just didn't get to. But like a lot of people are really passionate about racial justice issues at this time, which is wonderful, and I strongly support. And a lot of people want to hear a progressive message in the city, and so that's been really positive. As far as fundraising has gone, again, we're trying to create a movement campaign. So this is small dollar, grassroots funded. In January, we had the most individual contributions, all from just regular people, small dollar. Our funny story, our average donation in January was exactly $27. And so I thought that was pretty funny. We've raised a lot of money so far. I think you'll see it'll come out this month, but we've raised over $20,000 for the campaign. It's been a slog. It's really been a lot of work. I mean, it's disappointing to have to go through this the way that we do, because we have to spend so much time raising money, and it's really a hindrance to everyday working people to try to get involved. But we're doing the best we can to really build a movement of small dollar donations, the same way we have in other, the same way progressives have in other cities and in other states and in a national, at a national level. But it takes a lot of work. But it is going very well, is what I would say. Right now, the campaign is unopposed. I don't know if that will last. I expect at some point to get an opponent. People have until June to get in, but we are in a very good position right now, I would say.
Yeah, sounds like it. And if anybody doesn't understand the reference to the $27, I'm sure you're referring to the Bernie Sanders average donation in 2016, I think it was. That was when it was 27. So yeah, that was like a big deal. He would go on about like how the average donation is $27 to show how much grassroots support he had. But anyways, so I'm sure you've probably experienced this going door to door or just talking to people about like politics in general, whether they're involved in politics or whether they're apolitical. But, you know, people are obviously, for the most part, more engaged in either national politics or statewide politics. So, like, what would you say to someone who may be inclined to disregard local politics, and you know, why should people vote for the members of their city government?
Yeah, that is a great question, because it's so true that when we're out at the doors talking to people, national politics comes up first and state politics comes up second. And it's usually like Donald Trump, Joe Biden, Ron DeSantis. Like, those are the things that come up a lot at the doors, way more than any local issues. And it is disappointing, because people need to know what is going on at their local, in their local government. It's incredibly important. It really affects your day-to-day life more than any other level of government does. And so um, I would say it's sort of a feature of our political system and our economic system to make it to where you don't have enough time to know everything that's going on. And so I'm not going to like fault people for not necessarily knowing what's going on in the local government. I think part of what I want to accomplish as a council member is to stay very well connected to the community, to the registered voters, to everyone in the district, to make sure that they know, like, hey, there are city elections. This is how they directly affect your life. This is what we can do for you. And so I really am planning on going out of my way, and have done so far, by talking to all the registered voters in the district about the campaign. And so that's what we're doing from our perspective. But the reasons I would give them to pay attention is because things that constantly affect their life, you know, the way their neighborhood looks, the prices that they pay for the most important things in their life, like housing, are affected at the local level. And so I try to just go out with a positive message about what we want to accomplish, what the city does. And I will be spending time potentially as a counselor or a political organizer. No matter what happens, I'll be spending my time in the future trying to ease the burden on people's lives so that they can get more involved in their community.
Okay, so one last question before we end it off here. So as someone who is new to running for office, what is kind of like the biggest lesson you've learned from campaigning? And like, is there anything that has surprised you in particular?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the biggest lesson I've learned is, hmm, maybe how much work it takes. Not that I didn't know that it was going to take a lot of work, but really the details. There's a lot of little details when it comes to running for office that you aren't necessarily aware of, even if you've done political organizing in the past. There are so many people to talk to, so many organizations out there that are fighting for great things that you get to meet and know. And I think that that's some of the things that have been the most learning for me. And really, it's been great. It's been really positive to go around the community and find out about every organization, every person that's been working for hard things. Has been wonderful. As far as surprises, I would say I don't know. I mean, maybe it was a little surprising to find out how few people knew about what was going on in city council. A little bit of a surprise for someone who's been politically involved, but also I did expect, like, people don't have a lot of time on their plates, and so uh it was a little bit starker than I expected. So not a whole lot of things, but the thing is that I've been involved in political organizing for a while. It is surprising how much time it takes to raise money. It is, although, as much as people tell you that that's the case, you never really know until it's your life. But I'd say a big surprise that's been positive has been how good the reception has been in the community to what we're talking about. And so it's been a really positive experience so far, and I'm really enjoying it overall. I know that's your last question. I would just like to make note of a couple of things that the campaign's really focusing on that I haven't gotten time to talk about. And it's things like criminal justice in the city. I'm a huge advocate for the Community Assistance Liaison Program and expanding things like that can really help to solve our problems in a proactive way instead of a reactive way or a carceral or a punitive way. I really want this to be a city that like attacks its problems before they become criminal matters. And I want to, talk about public transportation more and how half of our carbon emissions come from our transportation woes in the Tampa Bay area, and how public transportation is a climate justice issue, it's a racial justice issue, and how everything is tied together. And there's a whole other litany of issues that I'm really passionate about. And I just want to make sure I mention things like racial justice and social justice and everything before, so that it's on the record.
Yeah, sure. Well, there you go. It's on the record. Well, I appreciate you taking your time to speak with me, Richie. Where can listeners find your campaign?
Yeah, the website is just richiefloyd.com, RICHIEFLOYD.com. It has links to all our social media, which is Facebook, which is facebook.com/Richie Floyd St. Pete, just STPETE, and Twitter and Instagram at Richie J. Floyd. You can keep up with the campaign on all of those platforms. The social media we're very active on social media. Like I said, we're trying to build like a progressive campaign, and that's sort of one of the hallmarks of a progressive campaign is active social media. So you can follow us there. And yeah, that's the best place. And if you go to the website, you can get on our email list. There's a form to fill out and get on our email list. Volunteer and donate there as well. Like I said, trying to have tons of small dollar contributions. So the link to our Act Blue page is on the website. And yeah, that's the best way to follow the campaign.
Awesome. And for those who are interested in potentially voting in the elections, the primary for the city elections in St. Petersburg will be held on August 24th, and the general election will be on November 2nd. So yeah, thank you anyone who's listening, who's made it this far. I appreciate it. And I hope you guys have a great day.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you know when we come back next week.